So first of all, we got Philadelphia. The 76ers are going through a lot of turmoil, especially with the Ben Simmons stuff, but they're doing surprisingly well. Joel Embiid is fourth in the league for points per game, and that is really good. And some other numbers are the record of 26 and 19, and they're sixth in the East. But the East is very close between the 5th to 10th position, so it just switches on a daily basis. But besides that, they're 11th in offense and 12th in defense, and that is very good. I think what this team has, like chemistry-wise, is way better than what they had last season with Ben Simmons. But if I were to switch some pieces, besides Ben Simmons, I would only switch Danny Green because Danny Green is so on and off. But I love Danny Green, as a Raptors fan. But, as a player, he's been very on and off and inconsistent. I would maybe switch something with that. But his leadership, is I think something they need. But with the Ben Simmons situation, the sooner you get a trade done, the better, because you're mixing up that chemistry. But I wouldn't give any player that is important to the squad. So Georges Niang, he's not a guy I consider integral, but I feel to what this team has with their chemistry, I feel like they still need him. Or Tyrese Maxey or Tobias Harris. I feel like they are a core part of the squad, including Matisse. But if you're, giving up some random pieces and Ben Simmons to get, for example, a De'Aaron Fox, the sooner the better. But it's just a matter of what are you going to do with this season of Joel Embiid, because this is, I think, I don't want to say it is the best Joel Embiid will ever see because I can't predict that, but it's the best we've seen so far. And I don't know if it's going to go higher than this. So the sooner the better if you bring a player who matches and fits their team and their playing style. So next is the Boston Celtics in the Atlantic Division. Honestly, I'm not a big Boston fan, but I have to talk truthfully. And Boston has been very underwhelming this season. I would say disappointing. Considering they have two of the best young wings in the league, they should absolutely not be 10th in the East. And although Jason Tatum had 51 points today, I don't think that necessarily speaks how well he's played this season. He's been very mediocre. I don't know about Jaylen Brown or most of their other players, but as always, Marcus Smart is an integral player to their team. But considering what this team needs right now, there are two things I've noticed so far. One is that they absolutely need a pass-first point guard. So the ideal prototype that always comes up is the Chris Paul. And I think a Ricky Rubio could kind of fit that mold, but there are not many of those sort of players in the league. So the question is, when is one going to be available and which one is going to go to them? And another thing in regards to their whole squad is that they need to get rid of some of those younger players they're not using. So not Robert Williams. Robert Williams is, in my opinion, with Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, considered to be untouchables. But, the Aaron Naismiths, the Peyton Pritchards, what are you going to do with them? That's the big question. And what can you get for them? In terms of the Dennis Schroeder, I don't really think that's a game changer or a difference maker of any sorts when you look at it in the long run. Yeah, maybe he can win you a few games. But in the long run, I don't think Dennis Schroeder means anything to this team. The next thing is, I love Jason Tatum as a player. His potential is beyond words. But one thing I've noticed in some of the interviews is that I don't necessarily think he sees the bigger theme with the team. He doesn't see the bigger picture. Sometimes he sees himself. And there was this interview where he was talking to, I think it was a Knuckleheads podcast. And, he was talking about last year's playoffs playing against the Brooklyn Nets. And then realizing in his head, I'm on the level with these guys. I can't believe I'm on the court with KD and them. I don't think you should have that idea. You're a professional. You're in the league. You've already made it. I feel like he was seeing himself instead of the team. I think if he had more of a focus of, okay, how can we beat this squad? How can we beat this team's full of stars? Instead of being like, oh, I'm on the same court as them. That would make a big difference. So I just think as long as Jason Tatum has this mindset, I don't think the team is going to go far. But I feel like winning solves all problems. So if they start winning and he sees this theme growing, I think he'll start to see the bigger picture as a team instead of himself. But as long as they have this point guard situation going on, I don't think anything's going to happen. So the Brooklyn Nets, they're first in the East with a 29-16 record. And if I'm not mistaken, they're a top 10 offense and a top 15 defense. They're 14th in defense, I'm pretty sure. And all those numbers aside, when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, it all kind of comes down to a few things. One is whether Kyrie is going to be available or not for home games, which he's clearly stated he's standing on his stance against the vaccines, while also it becomes a matter of luck. I think their team in LaMarcus Aldridge and Patty Mills has those veteran guys, six-man roles who can come in and finish the job. In case of a scenario, James Harden or KD or Kyrie is not feeling in that game. It's just not their game, which I think it's going to be very rare that's going to happen. But in case, Kyrie or KD or James Harden is getting doubled, if that open man is available, you want Patty Mills to take that corner three or the long three, or you want LaMarcus Aldridge to take that mid-ranger or take it inside. You want that. Another great thing is that they've got some young guys brewing, and they're not the best, but it's sort of like that Boston Celtics 2008 group of young guys where you want them to be like that, like Cameron Thomas, if I'm not mistaken. And DeAndre Bembry is another good addition they have in there. I'm forgetting some names, but you know what I mean. But it's also a matter of luck. James Harden, although he's not having his, greatest season of all time, it is still a very good season. If you consider if another player was having his sort of season, it would be one of the best years of their career. But on a James Harden level of standards, it's not. But their team is still doing really well, and James Harden is still playing really good. But the question comes down to luck. What's going to happen? We kind of saw this with last year's playoff run where, Kyrie gets injured. James Harden gets like a hamstring or quad injury, and he's not even him full self, and you're one toe away from reaching the conference finals. So it all comes down to luck. We just have to see with this team. We have to see what's going to happen. But I wouldn't say I'm surprised they're first in the East. When you look at their squad, they should be first. But so far, they've gotten lucky when you look at it. There have been some really close games where they only had when they only had KD, or Cam Thomas is the one who's taking them out of the trenches. It's like against the Spurs. So you just kind of got to look at it and how their luck is going. So there are three games that come into mind: the Dallas game, the Toronto game, and the Spurs game that I've watched, and I've noticed that they just got lucky and got out of it with a win. So yeah, it all comes down to luck with the Brooklyn Nets. So next up is the New York Knicks. The Knicks are 11th in the East, just below the Boston Celtics. And they have a 23rd offensive rating and the 13th defensive rating in the league. And honestly, they've been very disappointing this season when you look at it. RJ Barrett has not had much of an improvement when you look at the numbers, but I think he's still grown as a player. You have a really key piece in Evan Fournier that I think if he was in any other squad, they would make him a championship caliber team. But I don't know what's going on with some of the other pieces. Julius Randle is just a shadow of himself. Like, I don't know what happened, but I do not want to say he's a one-season wonder, but he's back to the Julius Randle of the old. Necessarily, I'm not a psychologist or, in his shoes, but when I look at it from the outside, I feel like when you're in a big market like New York and you get all these sponsor deals and such, with how he's portrayed his personality through media, I feel like it's got into his head that, I'm bigger than who I am. I'm the best player in New York, which he's not. I don't think, in his best day, he would be the third best player on, in a big three, but he's not the star of the team, in my opinion. And I went to the Raptors New York Knicks game in December, and I would say when you look at it, there were a lot of shots missed. There were a lot of shots missed by New York. And Toronto, I'm not gonna comment on how Toronto played, because in my opinion, they weren't playing their best, but it was mostly because Siakam was just shooting mid-rangers and missing. But the New York Knicks could have been way better. I feel like the addition of Cameron Reddish is really good. I really like that trade and pickup. I want to see how he's going to fit into that system. And honestly, I feel like Obi Toppin should be getting more playing time instead of Julius Randle. I don't know what I would do if I'm Tom Thibodeau. I think he's a great coach. I just think there is, when you're in New York, there's just so much going on. And I don't think this whole Julius Randle thing is going to work. So as in my opinion, if I was a general manager, all feelings aside, if Julius Randle starts playing good and is before the trade deadline, I would trade him when he's at his highest value and try to get a piece and build around RJ Barrett and Cameron Reddish, because I feel like that could be a really good future for them. And Obi Toppin. So next is the Toronto Raptors, who are 8th in the East, and they have the 10th best offense in the league and the 19th best defense in the league, which is surprising to me. I would think it would be usually the opposite, because we have a lot of great defensive talent in our team, you know, such as Boucher, Gary Trent Jr., Fred VanVleet. So that's what I thought, but it's not. And, you know, there are two themes that went on with the last year's team, which was not having a big man, you know, not having like a 7-foot center. And the other issue was our team was too small compared to the other teams. The other teams had, you know, they could field a 5-man lineup of players between 6'6" and 6'11", while we had to go with, you know, the 2 guards of Fred VanVleet and Kyle Lowry were 6 foot and without a center. So we're just small in all matters. But this theme of not having a center is returning. I'm not saying Precious is bad or Chris Boucher is bad or Ken Birch is bad. They're great players, but we need a 7-footer. You know, in case we're going up against Rudy Gobert, in case we're going up against Joel Embiid, we need a 7-foot center. Not to mention DeAndre Ayton. You know, watching the Phoenix Suns game, I could see the Raptors getting penetrated by their system because they did not have a center. So it becomes a matter of what can you do to get a center. I wouldn't give up Precious. I feel like Precious has a lot of potential and he could become sort of that player who can play big like a center, like Montrezl Harrell or Bam Adebayo, but not right now. We need either one of those two players or a 7-foot center who can move their feet, who can match up against a DeAndre Ayton. That way, the Raptors could be then a top 4 team in the East rather than where they are, where they're in that shuffle of teams that all have like a almost 500 record. I should also mention that there have been a growth in the stars. Fred VanVleet's numbers, in my opinion, haven't changed, but there's more of a spotlight on him now that we're winning. And, you know, the media is seeing how he's been carrying the team. He's leading the league in minutes per game, and he's also 4th in 3-pointers made. And I think he's like top 10 in steals, if I'm not mistaken, which is really good. And I could see Pascal Siakam is making his comeback from the injury, and he's regaining his confidence. Not to mention, OG has been wonderful this season. Each year you're seeing the growth. It might not be the growth you expect, but it's close to where you want it to be. And I'm very excited to see what this team can do. And not to mention Scotty Barnes. I don't know if he's going to be a Rookie of the Year. There's strong competition with Evan Mobley, but he's definitely an all-rookie first team. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, dislike. I do not really care that much. But yeah, for now, thank you and have a great day.